Hello, today we are going to learn about exchange rate determination. But before that, we have to know the definitions of exchange. Let's take a look at the definitions of an exchange rate. An exchange rate is the value of one nation's currency versus the currency of another nation. If Malaysians want to buy a good from the United States, Malaysians will offer Malaysian ringgits to demand US dollar. Therefore, Malaysians will convert Malaysian ringgits to US dollars to buy the good. Currency from different countries will be exchanged in exchange rate market. In the market, currencies are bought and sold at a certain price. For example, Malaysians need RM4 ringgit to buy 1 US dollar, and Thais need 7.8 baht to buy 1 ringgit. The exchange rate can increase or decrease depending on the demand and supply of a currency. The value of a currency will be determined by the market equilibrium. So, for example, this is actually market equilibrium exchange rate between Indian rupee and Malaysian ringgit. So we place RM per Indian rupee on y-axis, and then we place quantity of Indian rupee on x-axis. Okay, so this is actually the supply curve for Indian rupee, and then this is actually the demand for Indian rupee. Okay, so the concept is actually the same concept what you have learned in business economics about the demand and supply of a good. And then the same concept we are going to apply to this market equilibrium exchange rate. Okay, so we know that the value of a currency will be determined by the market equilibrium, and therefore quantity demanded of Indian rupee will be equal to quantity supplied of Indian rupee. So the value is actually 0.06, and then the market equilibrium, the quantity equilibrium is equal to the equilibrium quantity is equal to Q Indian rupee. Okay, so this means that a 1 Indian rupee is equal to 0.06. Okay, just now you look at the perspective of ringgit Malaysia per Indian rupee, but in this case we are going to look at the perspective of ringgit Malaysia per Indian rupee per ringgit Malaysia. It means that 1 ringgit Malaysia is equal to how much Indian rupee. Okay, so you are going to change your quantity from quantity of Indian rupee to quantity of ringgit Malaysia, and this one also you have to change demand. Just now is actually demand for Indian rupee. Now you are going to change to demand for ringgit Malaysia, and this one also you have to change. Just now you use supply of Indian rupee, but in this case you are going to use a supply of ringgit Malaysia, and this one also you have to change also the level. The level will be Indian rupee per RM ringgit Malaysia for Indian rupee per RM. So it means that 1 ringgit Malaysia is equal to how much Indian rupee. Okay, so since we know that our exchange rate, the currency is dependent on the market equilibrium, it means that Okay, so quantity demanded will be equal to quantity supplied. So supplied and demand curve will intersect with each other. So you can see that here is actually 18.19, so it means that 1 ringgit Malaysia is equal to 18.19, and then quantity is actually quantity ringgit Malaysia. Okay, so we have several factors that will determine our exchange rate. So the factors is first relative prices. So relative prices can influence our exchange rate. And then second is relative productivity. Relative productivity also can influence the exchange rate. And then third is consumer preference. Consumer preferences also can determine our exchange rate. And then trade restrictions. And the last one is actually the relative interest rates. Okay, so all of these factors can determine the exchange rate. Now we are going to look at how relative prices can influence the market equilibrium exchange rate between Malaysian ringgit and Thai bahts. Okay, so now suppose that the price of domestic goods increases due to inflation in Malaysia and the price of goods remain unchanged in Thailand. This will lead Thais to be more likely to buy local goods that are relatively cheap. Therefore, the demand for Malaysian ringgits will fall, causing the demand curve to shift from D0RM D1RM. Okay, so as for Malaysians, they are more likely to purchase goods from Thailand, which are cheaper. Therefore, the supply of ringgit Malaysia to get baht has increased, resulting in the supply curve shifting from S0RM to S1RM. Okay, so then it will cause the Malaysian ringgit to fall and the baht to increase from 1 ringgit is equal to 20 baht to RM 1 ringgit to 10 baht. So why do I say that ringgit Malaysia's will fall? Because before the shift in the demand curve and the supply curve, so you can see that 1 ringgit is equal to 20 baht. So it means that if you want to get 20 bahts, you need to provide only 1 ringgit. Now, when the price in the exchange rate decreases, so you can see that you need to have 10 ringgit, you need to have 1 ringgit to get only 10 baht. Okay, so it means that the ringgit Malaysia drops. Okay, before this we can have only 1 ringgit, then we can get 20 baht. Now we have 1 ringgit only, it means that we can get only 10 baht. So it means that the ringgit Malaysia drops, and then the drops and the Thai baht increases. Okay, we can change the label. Okay, so in this case, we are going to label RM per baht on our y-axis. So it means that 1 baht is equal to how much ringgit Malaysia. And then these ones we change to quantity of baht. Before this is actually quantity of ringgit Malaysia. Okay, so therefore demand is going to be demand for baht, and this supply of bahts. Okay, so and then we suppose that the equilibrium exchange rate is equal to 0.05, and this is the equilibrium quantity. So in this case, we say that the price of goods in Malaysia is higher than the price of goods in Thailand. So it means that Malaysians will prefer to buy goods from Thailand, and then Thai people will prefer to buy goods domestic in their country only. So it means that they are going to demand less for ringgit Malaysia. Okay, so if you look at this curve, okay, in this graph, so you cannot find the demand for ringgit Malaysia. Okay, so it means that if there's no demand for ringgit Malaysia, it means that you have to look at the supply of baht. Okay, so because why? Because if you want to demand for Thai baht, so it means that you have to supply your ringgit Malaysias, right? So in this case, if the price of goods in Malaysia is higher than the price of goods in Thailand, it means that we Malaysians are likely to buy goods from Thailand, and then we are not going to we do not prefer to buy our local goods. So it means that if you want to buy Thai goods, it means that you have to demand Thai baht. So if you want to, it means that the demand for Thai baht will increase from D0 to D1 baht, and then Thai baht, they are not going to demand more for Malaysian goods. So therefore, they are going to reduce their supply of Thai baht. So S0 baht will shift to S1 baht. So you can see that the exchange rate also will change from 0.05 to 0.1. So it means that before this, 1 baht is equal to 0.05. Now 1 baht is equal to 0.1. So it means that Thai baht will increase and then ringgit Malaysia will drop. Okay, so it means that in this case you can use you can label baht RM per baht, and then you also can label baht per ringgit Malaysia. Okay, so it depends on the question and it depends on your perspective.